Hey there, we're the Westlot Pirates and welcome to the show. We're here to share our thoughts on Northwestern athletics and college sports with thoughts and analysis from the visceral to the statistical. We run our tailgate with the red pirate flag flying high above as we give no quarter, especially the fourth. I'm Sam Walter.
I'm John Lacombe.
And I'm Eric Skoskauspo.
Today, gentlemen, we are here to talk about Penn State. Kind of the darlings of the preseason hype train. There's
Indeed.
a lot of people. There's a lot of people thinking that this conference might be Penn State's to win or lose. It'll be interesting to see how that progresses.
But can they get by Northwestern at home? Everyone's asking.
Everyone is.
That's the question.
I don't know that I'm asking that question.
They'll never see us coming, boys. They'll never see us coming.
Well, John, let's get started with this Penn State D. I mean, this is a defense that is traditionally very good. Any reason to believe that might not be the case this year?
Well, you say that, Sam, but you all should know, Penn State is now going into its third consecutive year with a new defensive coordinator, which, as we all know, is generally a bad indicator of defensive performance, like flux like that. He's just throwing guys out the door left and right. And then there's Penn State, where those three defensive coordinators in 3 years have been Manny Diaz, Tom Allen, and now Jim Knowles. So if Knowles leaves after one season and Penn State hires Jim Leonard to replace him, don't be surprised, because this just appears to be the track record that they're on right now. They're just collecting all the best guys. But
this is the best guy, though. There's no upward mobility from here.
Well, it's funny you mentioned upward mobility. We'll get to that in a second. It's bizarre. First of all, it's bizarre that Tom Allen left Penn State in the first place, and then we discussed this already, but it's bizarre that Jim Knowles left Ohio State. I'm not going to spend much energy here trying to get inside the minds of those two guys, but, and this is what I was talking about, Scuzz, talk about upward mobility. The important thing here relative to Jim Knowles is moving to Penn State gives him a chance to keep alive
Yes, his streak.
The most ridiculously awesome streak in sports, which is for 10 straight years, Jim Knowles has made his team's national defensive ranking better than it was the year before. And this goes Duke, Oklahoma State, Ohio State, and now Penn State. Everywhere he goes, every single year, he makes his defense better than it was the year before. That was finally going to end if he had stayed at Ohio State, because the Buckeyes, just like we thought they would, had the best defense in the country last year. You can't go higher than one. But instead, he arrives at Penn State with a chance to push this defense that was super good under Tom Allen even higher. And the general expectation is probably that he's going to do that, which means that Penn State, who had the number 4 total defense in the Big Ten in 2024, would be a top 3 unit in 2025. And I probably agree with that, but I think the fact that I do is more a testament to Knowles and just to what Penn State's been doing, as far as we can all remember, than it is to any specific players. Because there's zero doubt Penn State lost the 3 best guys from this defense last year. So the obvious headliner is Abdul Carter, who had been a great linebacker in their great linebacker tradition for a while. Then they shifted him to edge his final year, and he immediately became the best edge rusher in college football and a top NFL draft pick. But Jalen Reed and Kobe King were phenomenal at safety and linebacker for the Nittany Lions. Those guys contributed heavily in just about every statistical area, and they did a ton to drive the success of that football team. So, in other words, Penn State lost a game-defining player at every level of this defense. And the expectation is still that they probably won't drop off much at all. And again, that's probably the correct expectation. So it mainly comes down to the fact that Penn State is just stacked with upperclassmen who are known to be quite good at every level. And they just acquired, as Scott said, the best defensive coordinator in football. There's no doubt about it. And Penn State is just about as good at developing defensive talent as everyone. This is like the ultimate team where you go, oh, that guy's played in like only 3 games last year, but he looked great in those 3 games. So he's going to come in and kill it as a starter now. That's Penn State does that every year. They're like maybe the best school at that. So on the defensive line, Penn State loses Carter, but they still have Danny Dennis Sutton, who everyone knows in the Big Ten, he's one of the most high potential players in the conference. He has been since high school. He was a monster recruit. And he's always been that guy where he's shown flashes, but they've always been really deep at these positions the entire time he's been here. So he's been at peace. He had a great season opposite Carter last year, but now he has Knowles coaching him and the NFL draft coming right down the line, and the eyes are going to be on him. And you should expect him to be one of the most dominant defensive ends in the conference. And next to him is the monstrous Zane Durant, who had 11 tackles for loss as a defensive tackle last year. Just an absolute monster. And Penn State's going to fill out the rest of that line with good guys coming off injury or promising transfers and reserves. But just know that minimum, kind of like when we talked about Oregon, this line has 2 guys minimum that most other teams will not be able to handle. And they may have more than that. The linebacker core loses King, but they return Tony Rojas and Dom DeLuca. And as far as guys waiting to step in, like I feel like I read somewhere that Penn State has a good culture at this position. I feel like that's come up once or twice. They're going to find guys here, but I'd say it's in the secondary where Penn State's depth is most on display. Zakay Wheatley and Elliott Washington didn't start full seasons last year, but they both will this year. They're both going to be awesome. The grades on these guys are just phenomenal from everybody. Penn State already has an all Big Ten corner in A.J. Harris back there. But the thing with Penn State is, again, I could list like 4 other guys in that unit who are going to make big contributions in the secondary because Penn State's just stacked there. But I want to highlight 2 main things, and I don't know, maybe Scuzz will echo some of this. These guys all played a ton of big-time playoff football last year, like a lot. A lot of these guys had a chance to really cut their teeth in big football games. And 2, again, they have Jim Knowles now. So this is probably going to be an awesome defense. If they're not, it's probably going to be because Dennis Sutton, as kind of their marquee defensive end, who's always been this massive potential guy, didn't quite put it together as the ace of the defense. Maybe the linebackers were fine, but they weren't incredible. Maybe at least one interior defensive lineman gets injured. But again, that's a lot of asks in the face of the fact that this defense is just super deep, super talented, and super well coached. So I don't have much good news here from the Northwestern perspective. In my mind, any potential path to victory for Northwestern in this game is going to be gifted to us by a guy that I know Scuzz is going to be getting to shortly. But from in the boarding the Real Talk Express here, there's not really many paths for us. Like, this defense is awesome, and they're going to be at home.
Crazy stat that I was just picking up out of the tome here. The defensive linemen last year for Penn State combined for 10 pass breakups.
Yeah. Wow. And you can look, that's the thing, like, you can look at Penn State's linebackers, and you can just see, like, it's like guys at all positions pop up in every statistical area. Be like, wow, those linebackers sure batted down a ton of passes. Wow, all their secondary guys sure had a lot of tackles for loss. It's like, this is just such an awesome defensive culture. And then they just added the very best of the best coaches. Like, it's not like he's going to come in and look at all these sweet guys and not know what to do. He's going to know exactly what to do.
So, Scuzz, on the offensive side, I know coming out of last year, they had a lot of big-name guys who were debating going pro. None of them did.
One did.
Well, that's true. One did. But you've got 2 insane running backs coming back, and I believe the quarterback, which John was alluding to, I'll get out of the way and let you take these offensive juggernaut players in any direction you'd like.
Are you alluding to Phil Steele's potential top pick in the NFL draft, Drew Aller?
Maybe I
am. So this is going to be interesting. I have a very, very similar take on Penn State this year that I had on Ohio State last year. And I said on our Ohio State pod that I looked like a genius after the Oregon game and like an idiot by the end of the year because they won the national championship. But everyone loves the Nittany Lions this year, and a lot of it is that defense, and a lot of it is that they brought almost everyone back on offense. Phil Steele did refer to Drew Aller as having the potential to be the number one pick, which I think is crazy.
Unreal. That's nuts.
Like when you listen to, I was listening to the Solid Verbal guys that were talking about just how much Aller showed from an arm talent perspective last year.
I mean, no shit. That's the whole Drew Aller. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm going to hold myself back.
Hold me back. Hold me back. No, I like physically very gifted.
Sure is.
That ain't the problem. We'll get there in a minute. But I guess like where I land is I think like it is possible that Penn State wins it all. Like this is a stars aligning kind of year for this team. If they're ever going to do it, this is the year, right? And Aller might have a really, really good year. He might, he had a really good year last year, statistically, certainly. And overall, like took his team, they were a drive away from going to the national championship game.
Yeah.
But I will be absolutely gobsmackingly shocked if Penn State's offense is better in 2025 than it was in 2024. So I'm going to start with the three things that everybody's just going bananas about. And we've already talked about a little bit of them. So Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, both skipped the NFL draft to come back to Penn State. And there's depth behind them. This running back room is absolutely insane. Drew Aller was really good last year. 67% completion, 24 TDs to only 8 picks. He had a good year. The offensive line is the deepest in the country. They lost one dude. They bring back 4 starters and 7 depth guys that have starting experience. They've got like 14 highly rated recruits across like their 3 deep. Like it's insane. However, here's the thing that literally nobody is talking about as we enter 2025. Tyler Warren was the star of this show last year.
Yeah, he was.
1,500 total yards receiving and rushing. Beyond the box score, when you watched them play, it was always Warren getting Allen out of trouble. On third down, creating big plays to jumpstart the offense. There's a couple games where, he got loose and ripped off a 50-yarder that just kind of like jumpstarted their offense. He was so useful, in fact, that the top 2 wide receivers from last year's team decided not to come back. One is at Washington, the other's at Ole Miss. In fact, the only returning receiver who played meaningful minutes last year is Liam Clifford, former quarterback Sean's little brother.
Wow.
I've been worried about the wide receiver position at Penn State for a long time. They haven't had a really good one in over a decade, and they couldn't get anything out of high-profile Ohio State transfer Julian Fleming last year. They bring in some nice-looking transfers. Kyron Hudson comes from USC. Devontae Ross is a pretty fast dude coming from Troy. And then Trevor Pena was all ACC at Syracuse last year, amusingly catching balls from former Ohio State quarterback. They bring back a couple of unheralded backup tight ends, but there's like little depth and nobody across this whole group that you would describe as physically imposing. You get some speed from Hudson and Ross, but I mean, a lot of publications are talking about Pena, who's coming over from Syracuse, as he was great. He can be great in the conference, etc. But like, not a single one of these guys screams big play receiver, or can come anywhere close to what Warren did for this offense last year. This receiver core without Warren is middling at best, and this puts a tremendous amount of pressure on Drew Aller, Nick Singleton, and Katron Allen. I mean, unless Kotelnicki, the OC, can weave gold out of this flax. You look at quarterbacks coming into their senior year, they do not always improve. How often have we talked about the draft effect, right? Or it's just seen breaks not go a guy's way. Last year, Aller made a really conscious effort to improve both his accuracy and his depth of target, and he did a good job. But Warren was a cheat code. And he's not going to have that this year. And more importantly, the running backs won't either. The attention of the defense is going to shift back to them. And they were elite last year. Singleton ran for 1,100 yards and 12 TDs, averaged 6.4 yards per carry. Katrin Allen, 1,100 yards, 8 TDs, 5 yards per carry. These guys both carried the ball. Well, Allen 220 times, Nick Singleton 174. They stayed healthy. They were dominant because teams had to figure out what to do with Warren, and they picked their poison. And also Warren was awesome as a blocker. I think this is going to be a different animal this year. I don't see how the run game can make up for what they're going to lose in the passing game. The run game might be amazing. It might be just as good as it was last year, but they are going to lose something because they don't have their all-world tight end that they used as a game breaker in every possible setting. I'll mention too, like Aller's stats were good last year, but his pick rate increased by 4x over 2023. And he got dinged up with his knee at one point in the year. He's going to run less this year too, given he's going to be thinking about his draft status. So I just don't think this offense can bring more heat this year. They don't have the proven pop at wide receiver and tight end. It's asking a lot of Aller to actually improve under these conditions. I don't think that's going to be possible. So at best, they get a similar season from Aller, a similar season from the running backs. They're going to be really solid with senior-laden talent. They have the highest floor of all the offenses in the conference. But there's a recipe here for disappointment that this team is not going to be able to put up the kind of points it did last year. They're going to really have to lean on that defense and hope it comes through in spades.
If you or a loved one is seriously injured by someone else's negligence, hire Kent Simpson of the Simpson Law Group. After over a decade prosecuting murder cases in Chicago, Simpson opened his own firm focused on wrongful death and personal injury cases. He specializes in car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and other transportation accidents, as well as construction accidents, medical negligence, slip and falls, product liability, and more. Millions recovered for clients. No fee unless he wins. The Simpson Law Group. Compassion, empathy, and vigorous advocacy. Go to simpsonlawgroup.com or call 312-332-2107 for a free consultation, and go Cats. So let's run through this schedule here real quick. Non-conference open up at home Nevada, Florida International, and Villanova. Cool.
They're going to win those games 150-0. Those are
yes. If they're smart, they won't play Allen or Singleton more than like the first quarter in any of those games.
Yeah. They get a bye week before welcoming in Oregon on September 27th. That is
big game.
Oh yeah,
big game. It's on NBC, 6:30. That's going to be your whiteout, guaranteed.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Then they travel to UCLA before coming home to play us. Then they go to Iowa and Ohio State, come home for Indiana. They're at Michigan State, home for Nebraska, and finish off the season at Rutgers.
It's not a brutal schedule.
No,
it's not.
It's not. If you look at all their big ones, they get most of them at home, and which really at Ohio State being the big
at Ohio
exception,
State, yeah,
and then at Iowa, which I would very much throw into that group also. It's totally like I am not here to argue against them being the number one team in the country. They very much may be the best team in the country. Like totally. I mean, like just
especially on paper,
they're like half the teams on their schedule, at least, the run game in that offensive line are going to obliterate teams. Like they're so deep and good in those areas. Like they're basically an NFL unit. So it's funny, like there's a team we're going to get to well down the road. You may know them, you may hate them. They live down in the corn, where you could argue that team is completely reliant on a single guy. Penn State is like the inverse of that. Penn State is like, we're so friggin' sweet everywhere unless we have to rely on this one guy. And that's the whole thing. I mean, you mentioned it, like losing Tyler Warren. Anyone who's watched Aller, it's like all this talk about whatever. Everyone knows anytime this guy faces a good defense, he only wanted to throw to 3 players, Tyler Warren and the 2 running backs, 5 yards out of the backfield. That's his
Singleton
whole.
had 41 catches last year.
Yeah, that's all he wants to do. The dude just turtle shells. Um, and their offensive line's so flipping good. He'll have all day to throw the ball, and the running backs against any non-great defensive line. But Oregon, Iowa, Ohio State, Indiana, Nebraska are all good defenses, and all particularly good against the run. And that's the thing. Like you look at a game like Nebraska, that ought to be a write-off. Penn State's obviously a better team than Nebraska. They get that game at home. But you know what Nebraska's awesome at? Stopping the run. And then the question becomes, well, what happens then?
Yep.
What happens when Drew Aller has to do something in a football game?
So you just ripped off those 5 teams that are good defenses are going to have to play: Oregon, Iowa, Ohio State, Indiana, Nebraska. The 5 best defenses they played last year: Ohio State, USC, I guess.
No.
So Ohio State, Illinois,
No.
Minnesota,
Yep.
Washington, West Virginia. I mean,
It's not a
like
murderer's
before
row,
you
is
got
it?
to the Big Ten tournament or the Big Ten championship game. Yeah, it's not a murderer's row. Like this schedule doesn't look that bad, but when you compare it to last year's, that is a whole like added pressure on this offense.
Oh, for sure.
From the other side of it, like, so they played Ohio State, they played USC, they played Illinois. This year they've got Oregon, Ohio State, and Indiana, who are better. That is a better trio of offenses that they're going to have to face. If Nebraska steps up, that's going to be better than the next best one they played, which I guess Illinois or West Virginia. I don't know. This is going to be hard for them. And like I said, I think like the recipe for disappointment is quite palpable here.
Yeah.
Here's my hope. Here's my hope for us, at least, as we think about Northwestern. The fact that they go to UCLA the week before they play us,
It's a trap game.
it is.
And at
Iowa after us.
Well,
Iowa
that
after
was
us.
bad.
cross country to, but there and back. Maybe, I mean, you're probably not jet lagged, but then looking ahead to Iowa, is it a trap game?
So
I think
2 years ago was the year, and I think, John, you referenced this when we did, I think, our Oregon pod, and we were talking about like the best defenses that are going to come to Northwestern and the Lakefront Stadium. And Penn State is a team in 2022. We were tied at halftime, right? We ended up losing that game 17-7. They were super good that year. I believe it was a torrential downpour.
Weather. Yeah, that was my next thing.
That was part of it.
Early to mid-October.
But they were also going to number 5 Michigan the following week, a game that they ended up losing. And that's a little bit of the hope that maybe you get a little weather, get a turnover on the opening kickoff. Stuff like this is like I do not have much hope of us beating Penn State. I think Oregon and Penn State are just a bridge too far for us this season. But there's again the recipe is there.
Like I would say, if you look at a team like Oregon or Ohio State, I'm going to tell you exactly what they're going to do. Sell out against the run and be like, our secondaries create a massive mismatch for us. Oregon's like, every guy in our secondary is way better than every pass catcher Penn State's putting on the field. We will sell out against the run, make Drew Aller hit targets against these guys. But again, it's one thing to say that. Penn State's going to face 8-man boxes all year, and they're friggin' awesome. They have 2 NFL running backs and an NFL offensive line, and it's deep. Everyone's going to try to do that, but a team like Oregon is like, their defensive line's awesome. And they're going to be like, we're going to sell out against the run with our good linebackers, and then we're just going to try to cover you straight up. You're going to drop back to pass, fine. Aller's got time. We can cover. So he's going to have to hit his windows, and then we'll see. Again, we're going to try to do that too. So is a UCLA. It's just hard. It's hard. They are going to bludgeon us on every offensive down with those running backs. And again, it's like you hang on as long as you can. And heck, 2 years ago, they came to town. We were tied 10-10 with them at the half because we got some breaks, and our defense really dug in. And maybe we can do that again. But again, like on the other side, like this team has Jim Knowles coaching their defense now. Like
Yeah.
in every way, this team fits the profile of a number one team. Penn State deserves to be number one more than any other team deserves to be number one. There's no doubt about it. Like they have all of the pieces. And I don't believe in Drew Aller going the distance, but if Penn State, effectively, if all the other pieces carry him, that wouldn't surprise me in the least. They've got a lot here.
I think the problem is they got to play Ohio State.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you look at the schedule and, like, they can't beat Ohio State. They can't.
Right.
No, it's been, I think, once in the last 16 years. If ever it was going to happen, what's funny is that this is what we all said about Ohio State last year.
Yeah,
if ever it was going to happen, the year that Michigan, Harbaugh finally leaves and they get turnover at the quarterback position and defense, et cetera, and they horked it up. Penn State's got, like, their last win was in 2016, almost a decade ago. And again, if there's ever going to be a year, this is the year on paper, but they have to go to the shoe.
They have a bye week between Iowa and them.
They have a bye week, but then they have to go play Indiana the week after. They've got that massive Oregon game. Like this is a much, much harder needle to thread than I think anybody is giving it credit for. Despite I agree with everything you said, John. This team, it well deserves the number one rating. But I think people are talking about them without fully examining the context and the gauntlet that they're going to have to travel.
One other thing we didn't mention yet is, what will James Franklin do?
Yeah, I mean, like James Franklin gone James Franklin. There's no doubt about that.
He didn't really have any moments last year.
It's true. But that doesn't mean he won't. I mean,
it means he's due, guys. It means he's due.
Hey, let's put it this way: if in that Ohio State game in the shoe, you want me to rank the top 3 NFL draft picks in that game by likelihood of scoring a touchdown, Jeremiah Smith is number 1. Caleb Downs is number 2.
Yep.
Indeed.
And Drew Aller is number 3. Caleb Downs doing something in that game that etches him into Ohio State lore would be very high on my priority list.
Anything else we need to mention about Penn State here tonight?
No. I mean, they're awesome. They could totally win the national title. They've got a ton of talent here. What's
the worst case scenario for them? Like, what's their floor? 8 wins, 9 wins?
I think it's 8. I think the floor is 8. I can't see them losing to Nebraska at home unless they've gone through just some horrible nightmare injury scenario.
Right.
But I could see Indiana pipping them just based on the pure spite that Cignetti holds in his heart.
For sure.
So the trip to Iowa, Ohio State, and Oregon, I don't see them losing any other games on the schedule.
I mean, again, too, like we've talked about this with other teams, mainly Ohio State, though. I'm going to say 10. I'm going to say 10-2, which would be a disaster for them.
It would be.
Like, that's the thing, is like, you're the number 1 team in the country. There's no excuses here. You guys are stacked. But
you don't think it could get worse than 10? You don't think they could lose more than that?
I mean, sure. I mean, it's, if Drew Aller just self-combusts, then absolutely. I mean, again, for all the talk, this team has to play. I mean, I'm going through counting, 5, 6 NFL NFL defensive linemen, all potentially first-round guys. You can throw our own Anto Saka into that group, but this offensive line's really good. But we'll see what happens when they actually have to throw to win a football game.
Yeah, that's the kicker, and you can already sense how tight they're going to get if things aren't going well in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And that's an interesting difference in the Ohio State team of last year. The Michigan game notwithstanding, is that they had some games that didn't go well early on, and they were typically, I mean, the game against us is a good example, right? We were right in it with them early on. They were struggling to generate offense consistently game to game. But eventually their talent just took over and got them through. And they didn't ever really tighten up again, except for Michigan. I feel like you can just see Penn State at home, hyped out of their minds against Oregon. not even get punched in the mouth. Just like Oregon is doing Oregon things, and they struggle against that incredible Oregon defense that probably can give theirs a run for their money. And all of a sudden, everybody's sphincter tightens, and they start to make the mistakes and turtle shell and all it's all screens and flares
Right.
and thirds and longs, and that's I've said it like 3 times now, but I like the phrase. That's the recipe for disappointment.
Yeah.
So at the time we're recording this, the coaches poll has come out. They're sitting at number 3, behind Ohio State and Texas.
Really?
Behind Ohio State?
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Texas number 1 with 28 first place votes. Ohio State had 20. Penn State 14.
We'll
Place
see.
votes.
We'll see. I honestly, that probably is,
Clemson at 6 has got 2.
that's probably better for Penn State to not be in that driver's seat. Like Scuzz said, like the pressure is going to be immense for these guys, particularly for one of them. And no, 2 of them. Throw James Franklin in there. We'll see how James Franklin / Drew Aller can handle this for an entire season.
I haven't studied them enough, but it's stunning to me that Georgia is not being talked about a bit more.
I mean, Georgia's number 4. Georgia's right behind them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Followed by Notre Dame, Clemson, Oregon, Bama, LSU, Miami, rounding out the top 10. Illinois sitting at 12.
Yeah.
Michigan at 14.
Yeah.
Indiana 19.
I just think Kirby Smart has Signetti energy, or the other way around. I don't know which it is.
You know who has Signetti? You know who has Signetti energy? Kurt Signetti, who gets to play James Franklin on November 8th.
On that, I think we go ahead and leave it there. Head to our website, westlawpirates.com, where you can leave comments and questions. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, at Westlaw Pirates. You can always email us, westlawpirates@gmail.com. Tune in next time as we give our visceral and statistical views on Northwestern athletics. And look for us in the West Tech lot of Martin Stadium flying the red pirate flag, because we give no quarter, especially the 4th. For John Lacombe and Eric Scasbo, I'm Sam Walter. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.